In the first demo of this module, we've seen the finalized version of Joe's Coffee Store. Let's now start building that website. Now, typically before any code is written, a design or a mockup is made, and that's exactly what I've done here as well. I have created using Balsamiq some mockups for a couple of pages we are going to create, and then we'll start adding the code for those pages. This is the mockup for the index, so the landing page. You'll notice the logo, Joe's Coffee Store, the navigation, a couple of images, so the lead images, the text that will later on make multi-column, some links to news items, and then we had the coffee bestsellers, and at the bottom of the page we had the footer with the address and the copyright notice. Let us now create the code for this page. Just to set things clear, the goal of this first demo is building up the skeleton, so we won't be adding any layout yet. That will be done in module 2. So I'm now in Visual Studio and I'm going to start by adding a new HTML page to my solution. And I'm going to call that index. Now Visual Studio presents us with a blank HTML5 page, and we can see that when we look at this very simple doc type declaration. So I'm now going to focus mostly on adding content to the body of the page. Let's take a quick look at the mockups again. So the first thing I'm going to add is this image here, as well as this Joe Coffee Store header. The first thing I'm going to be pasting in is the header. Notice that I'm using a header tag here. As explained in the slides, this has mostly a semantic meaning. It doesn't add any layout whatsoever to my page. Inside the header, I use a plain old div, within there an anchor tag, so a link surrounding an image, and also a span which contains the text Joe's Coffee Store. We're going to skip for now adding the navigation and these two lead images here. We'll do that in a later module. Let's now focus first on these two blocks here. So this welcome text and this list of news items, so that related information. For the welcome text, I've used this section tag. I could have used a div if this block would be there just for layout purposes, but here it actually has a meaning saying that its contents belongs together. That is why I used a section here. Next, we will add that related information. For that, I'm using the aside tag. Remember that the aside tag is mainly used for information which is related to the content, so to the main content here, but is not really part of that main content. It is related information. That is why I'm using the aside tag here. Now I've come to the point where I need to add this entire bestsellers block with the coffee's header. For this block, I've decided to again use a section, as you can see here. Again, the reason is the same. I'm using a section because of the fact that all its contents is related. It is one block of related content that I'm going to be adding. First, I'm going to add to my section a header. That would be the bestsellers at Joe's Coffee Store. Now inside this bestsellers section, I'm going to have several other sections. To start off with, I'm going to have the coffee bestsellers, which contains all the coffees. Again, this nested section also has a header. And inside of it, I'm going to add the different coffees. I'm going to add the first coffee, and I'm using for that coffee an article tag. Now this may astonish you a little bit. Why is this an article? Now an article, if you look it up in the HTML5 spec, is basically an on itself standing piece of content. Well, an article can also be a product, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. Now inside the article tag, I'm using first a figure to surround the image. Now, this is a bit debatable whether or not that figure is really useful. As you remember from the slides, the figure is often used when the image is referred to from the main contents. That is not really the case here. So whether or not you should place this figure here, it's a bit open for discussion, but let's put it there for now. Then I have again a header, which contains the product article name. And then I also have a div, which will later become the button to add that product to the cart. The other products are, of course, the same. And as mentioned, I also had other sections. For example, this is the accessories bestsellers section. So they are all within that main section here, bestsellers. If we go back to the mockups, we'll see that there's one more thing to add, and that is the footer. Now, just like the header, the footer is another semantic element. Now, inside the footer, I'm going to add the address and the copyright notice, and finally also the time at which the page was generated. Now, for the address, I'm using the new address tag. Again, a tag with semantic meaning, meaning that its contents actually represents a physical address. I also need to add the copyright notice and the time the page was generated. The copyright notice is a very simple paragraph. The one containing the time on which the page was generated actually uses the time tag. Again, a tag that gives a semantic meaning to its contents. There's one more tag I actually want to use on this page, and that is the mark tag. I actually want in the welcome text to highlight something so that users would actually see this. And to mark a piece of content, I'm actually using the mark tag, which will highlight by default using yellow its contents. If you save this and browse to this page, we'll see a very ugly looking page for now. So there we have the header, the welcome text, the highlighted text that I just added with the mark tag. This is the aside containing the news information. And then we have the bestsellers, which are all in article tags. And an article tag is a block element, meaning that they're all by default listed below each other. And at the very bottom of the page, we have the footer, which contains the address, the copyright notice, and the page generation time. The second page we're going to work on is the coffee details page. As you can see, this page also has the same header. It then contains the name of the coffee, a larger image of that coffee, all the text, the explanation of that coffee, and the price. And at the bottom of the page, we again have the footer. I'm going to add another new page. That will be coffee details. And I'm going to start by adding the same header again. For similar reasons, I'm going to add another section which contains all the coffee details. It is content that is mainly belonging together. The section has, of course, a header, which is the name of the coffee. It also contains an image of the coffee, which is again wrapped in a figure tag. I notice that I also have a fake caption here to show some text below the image. Finally, I have the entire coffee description inside of a div here. Let's take a look at this page in the browser. Again, it's looking pretty ugly for now. The final page we'll look at for now is the All Coffees page, which again contains a very similar header and then a listing of the different types of coffee and the shopping cart on the right. Now I have cheated a little bit and I've pasted in the entire page already, so we'll take a quick look at it. It is pretty similar to what we've already seen. We again have the header at the top of the page. We have a section called All Coffees, which will contain effectively all coffees. There's a header for that section, and then each coffee is again wrapped in a different article tag. At this point, we've created the skeleton using the new HTML5 elements. One little thing I haven't mentioned yet, you can follow along with everything that I'm doing here in the sample code that comes with this course. You can find the begin as well as the end solution for each demo. Let's go back to the slides for now. With the site skeleton ready, we have arrived at the end of this first module. The pages are still extremely basic, but we'll work on that, of course, in the next modules. Let's quickly recap what we have seen in this first module. We have seen that HTML5 is adding quite a lot of new features and is actually much more than just HTML. In itself, the HTML5 arsenal of available tags is dramatically extended. Many of the newly added tags are there to give semantic meaning to the content they contain. In general, the HTML5 standard is a very strong evolution of HTML, and it enables us to build web applications of today and tomorrow. These sites not only run in a desktop browser, indeed, with HTML5 we are ready to build web apps which run on many devices and platforms. I hope you've enjoyed this first module and hope to see you again in module 2. Thanks for watching.